The Earth is not abundant. The natural resources of the world are being depleted as the population increases, and therefore consumption rates continue to grow. Coal, oil, phosphorus, as well as many elements are non-renewable resources that are continuing to be consumed at exponential rates. There is a limit to the resources on Earth, and there is a carrying capacity. And once we surpass this carrying capacity, there is going to be a devastating impact to humanity. According to BP Oil, in June of 2014, there are 1,687.9 billion barrels of oil left. This would be enough to supply our current consumption rates for 53.3 years, and although the time could be shortened or lengthened depending on the amount of reserves that continue to be found and our consumption rates, it will run out eventually. Coal is another resource that is widely used and also in danger of being depleted. The World Coal Association said that in 2010, the world production of coal was 6.8 billion tons. If we continued to use it at this rate, the high rank reserves of coal could only supply the world for another 100 to 170 years, which would last a mere couple of generations more. Phosphorus is also important to the human society. It's used in fertilizers and is essential to growing crops. With growing population, there is a higher demand for food, and this leads to the need for more agriculture. Phosphorus is a key component of agriculture, but according to the Global Phosphorus Research Initiative, without new reserves, it will run out in 50 to 100 years. This could lead to a food shortage and famine across the world. Neither coal nor oil nor phosphorus are resources that can be renewed during a human life cycle. Although they are renewable on a long-term geologic scale, this in no way benefits human consumption, and therefore they will run out. There is no limitless abundance of these resources, and our current consumption rate is going to cause devastating effects to humanity when they do. We are not going to be around forever, and the inevitable end of the use of these resources will happen. Without finding alternatives to these resources, finding a way of recycling what we have used, or reducing consumption, there will be a crisis in future generations as these resources are used up. Some claim that there is an abundance of resources and that with the right technology we will never run out. Although we can reduce or recycle our resources better through technology, they still won't lead to a limitless abundance of resources. Take solar energy for example. Solar panels are used to trap energy from the sun to power our world instead of other methods such as fossil fuels. Solar energy reduces the amount of coal that is being burned, which is great for saving our reserves of coal. However, solar panels have an element called indium in them. Indium is not a limitless resource, and so even though we are limiting the use of coal, we are now using up another resource for our purpose. Although alternatives can be found, it comes at the cost of another. As technology advances, resources are being used up to construct the new technology, and this could eventually lead to a deficit of these as well. Indium is used in touchscreens and solar panels, copper is used in wiring, and tantalum is used in mobile phones. As our technology advances, the need for these elements increases. We are living in a technological world, and more alternatives to our current technology must be found if we wish to continue living at the current rate of technological advancement. Many scientists believe that the Earth has a carrying capacity of 9 to 10 billion people. These estimates are based off the Earth's available resources. The constraints of the biosphere are fixed. The use of livestock to convert plant energy into food energy is not efficient, so 10 billion people could only be fed if everyone agreed to become a vegetarian. According to the United Nations Population Division, human population will reach 10 billion by 2100. Humans will likely be in trouble if the population exceeds 10 billion. The amount of fresh water on Earth has remained constant over time, but the human population has exploded. Not including water trapped in glaciers and snowfields, only 0.07% of the Earth's water is accessible to humans. Humans are inefficient water users. Water use has grown at more than twice the rate of population growth in the last century, according to the United Nations. About a fifth of the Earth's human population currently lives in areas that have water shortages. We must learn how to efficiently manage, distribute, and conserve the water we have in order to sustain a growing human population. In order to keep our Earth healthy, we must have a reasonable amount of greenhouse gases in our atmosphere. A balance in the amount of gases is integral, as if we have too little, the Earth will cool, and too much will heat the Earth. The universally agreed upon number for the upper limit of our chief greenhouse gas, CO2, is 350 parts per million. Any more CO2 than 350 parts per million in our atmosphere will result in the overheating of our Earth. Unfortunately, we have not only reached this number, but blown past it, and the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere is now exponentially growing. But the atmospheric levels of CO2 have consistently stayed above this upper limit since early 1988, about 26 years. Many people say the increase of CO2 in our atmosphere is part of a natural cycle of rising and falling of CO2 emissions. This is partially true, but even at the peaks of these cycles in the last 650,000 years, the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere has never risen above 300 parts per million until the 1950s. Currently, the amount of CO2 in our atmosphere rests at a shocking 399 parts per million after having breached 400 for the first time in human history in 2013. Over 36.7 billion metric tons of CO2 is released every year. In order to keep the levels of CO2 in the atmosphere constant, we would need just over 300 billion acres of forests. Currently on our Earth there are under 10 billion acres of forests, and this number is decreasing by 20 million acres per year due to the high amounts of forests that are clear-cut for agriculture. It is not a question of will we run out of resources or not. It is a question of how long we can put off the end until it happens. The assumption is that humans will find a solution to prevent supplies from running out, such as better and cheaper extraction methods, recycling materials, reducing consumption, and finding alternatives to non-renewable resources. But unless we act soon, the end of some resources could be closer than expected. 50 years from now could mark the start of the end of resources that run our world. So what are we going to do when the time comes to make a decision about the fate of our society?